A night guard desperately tries to remove the grate from a pizzeria. Something approaches, and when the guard finally reaches the other side, he heads towards the emergency exit but is soon caught by something. The man wakes up in a chair, arms restrained, and with a mask with sharp blades approaching his face. The guard still reaches for the screws on the chair, but unfortunately, he is caught by the blades. Mike struggles with sleep due to a childhood trauma. A few years ago, Mike was playing with his younger brother, Garrett, but the boy was abducted by an unknown character in a car. Mike would never forgive himself, and to this day, he still tries to uncover the kidnapper's identity. He undergoes a kind of sleep therapy to try to remember the details of that day. One day, while working as a security guard in a shopping center, he sees a child being dragged by a man and thinks it's a kidnapping. Mike attacks the man, giving him several punches in the face, only to discover too late that the man was actually the boy's father. Because of this incident, Mike is called in by supervisor Steve to be fired, but when Steve sees Mike's family name, he changes his mind and offers him a job as a night guard at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the famous restaurant from the 80s that closed after the mysterious disappearance of 5 children inside. His task is to watch over until 6 a.m., and to achieve this goal, Mike will have surveillance cameras both inside and outside the pizzeria. Initially, Mike rejects the job offer, stating that he can't work at night because he has to take care of his younger sister, Abby. Meanwhile, Abby prefers to focus on her drawings rather than what her brother tells her. To worsen the situation, Mike's aunt requests custody of Abby to receive the family allowance. Abby's teacher advises Mike to find a job as soon as possible, as it will earn him points. The situation forces Mike to take the night guard job, and soon he begins to guard the pizzeria. During his first night of work, Mike ends up falling asleep, and his dream is different from the usual. He wakes up surrounded by 5 strange children who stare at him, trying to figure out who they are. Despite Mike's attempts, he wakes up and goes home, thanking Max, the babysitter. We later find out that the babysitter works for Mike's aunt, with the mission of gathering evidence against him to use in the custody hearing for Abby. Max's brother suggests framing Mike by destroying the pizzeria, which would lead to his dismissal and possibly a malpractice lawsuit. On the second night at his new job, Mike falls asleep again, and in the same recurring dream, he sees his brother Garrett being abducted. Shortly afterward, the children appear again, and it follows the same pattern, with Mike feeling that they know the kidnapper's identity, but the children run away again. This time, Mike manages to catch one of them, but the child hits him in the arm with a sharp hook. When Mike wakes up, he realizes that a policewoman is knocking on the pizzeria's door. Vanessa sees the wound on Mike's arm, just like in the dream. She says that security guards usually don't last long and tells him about the disappearance of the children, showing him the famous animatronics that entertain children while eating pizza there in the past. These animatronics are Foxy, Cheeky, Bonnie, and Freddy, the show's stars. At dawn, Mike returns home, but Max and his brother start their plan. They break into the pizzeria and destroy everything, ultimately angering and awakening the animatronics. Suddenly, Chica uses her robotic cape to attack one of the intruders. The other witnesses the scene and panics, running and hiding in a closet where Bonnie is already waiting. The leader sees his comrade running into the rooms and decides to go and see what's happening. He sees Bonnie killing his comrade, so he locks himself in Mike's office and tries to remove the grate from the duct. But Chica's cake attacks him suddenly. The office door mysteriously opens on its own, so he tries to exit through the emergency exit. Unfortunately, he realizes the door is locked. This time, Foxy appears to kill him. Observing the delay of the 3 men, Max decides to enter the pizzeria to see what's happening. He hears a voice calling him and finds Freddy. Using a chair, he looks into Freddy's mouth, but the animatronic puppet bites his head, cutting his body in half. That evening, Max does not show up to take care of Abby, so Mike is forced to take his sister to work with him. The girl falls asleep while Mike cleans up the mess from the previous night's break-in. Then he returns to his work with the surveillance cameras and falls asleep again. Mike meets one of the children and asks the boy if he knows who kidnapped Garrett, and the boy responds that he might know something but asks for something in return. Mike says he is willing to give anything in exchange for knowing who the kidnapper is. When he wakes up, he realizes that his sister is not in the room and rushes to find her. Mike discovers that she is playing with her new friends, the animatronics, who surprisingly do not attack. Mike is puzzled and decides to take her home. In Abby's room, he sees that the drawings she made are actually visions of the events that happened in the pizzeria. Eventually, he realizes that the missing children have possessed the animatronics, and takes the opportunity to ask them if they know who kidnapped his brother. She replies that they haven't mentioned anything and have only talked about a yellow rabbit that they are very afraid of. On the 4th night, Mike meets Vanessa at the pizzeria and is surprised that the policewoman doesn't seem scared of the animatronics at all. She explains to Mike that not only do the spirits of the children reside in the robots, but also their bodies from the inside. The person responsible for their disappearance hid the bodies inside the animatronics to deceive the police during the investigation. Despite the unsettling situation, people and animatronics have fun until Abby accidentally touches the guitar and receives an electric shock, causing her to faint. Shortly after, Vanessa explains that the electricity in the pizzeria is very unstable because it hasn't been maintained for decades. Outside the pizzeria, Vanessa is furious with Mike and tells him never to bring Abby there again because the animatronics are dangerous. This leaves Mike thoughtful, and he decides to return to the pizzeria to try to communicate with the children again. But this time, he wakes up in the woods on the day his brother disappeared. His family invites him to join them for lunch, and Mike tells the children that things haven't been like this in the past. But the children's leader responds that if he wants him back, there is one condition. Mike will have to give Abby to the animatronics. Although tempted to relive that moment with his family more often, he remembers his sister and decides to refuse the deal. Angry at him, the children begin to attack him in the dream. Mike wakes up severely injured from the blows in the dream. He is also captured by animatronics and placed in the same trap as at the beginning of the movie. However, Mike manages to free himself and escape, but being injured, he doesn't get far and faints. When he wakes up, he finds out that Vanessa saved him and explains that Freddy and his friends want to turn Abby into one of them. They want to sacrifice her to make her one of the robots, but she says they are compelled by the same man who captured them in the 80s, and they don't remember what the maniac did to them. The man is William Afton, Vanessa's father, and he is the yellow rabbit from numerous drawings. Mike also realizes that William is the kidnapper of his younger brother. Vanessa tells him that the only way to immobilize the animatronics is with electricity, giving him a taser and a bat. Meanwhile, Abby is entrusted to her aunt's care. The aunt relaxes in the living room, but she doesn't know that Fred is behind her and is controlled by the blonde boy who appeared in Mike's dreams. Shortly, Abby sees her aunt lying on the living room floor, but the boy tells her that the woman is asleep. The two take a taxi and go to the pizzeria, where Abby realizes they want to hurt her to make her enter a costume. Mike appears, using a bucket of water to wet the floor, and uses the taser to paralyze two animatronics. Mike manages to save Abby, but Chica's cupcake catches him, preventing him from escaping with his sister. Just as Abby was about to escape from the pizzeria, she is stopped by the mysterious yellow rabbit, who tells her she must join the others, revealing that William is the one who gave Mike the job, admitting that although he took his younger brother, Garrett, he wants to do the same with Mike. Vanessa's purpose was to keep him away from the truth, but the maniac became even more interested in Abby when he found out that Mike has a sister. Vanessa arrives and tells her father that she won't allow this to happen anymore. She tries to convince him to stop, but he ignores her and stabs her. Meanwhile, Abby runs to the mural painting at the pizzeria and attaches drawings of William hurting the children. As she looks at the drawings, the animatronics remember the atrocities that happened and eventually decide to turn against William, crushing him with the tools of the costume. On the brink of death, William says he will return and wears the mask for the last time. Later, Vanessa is in a coma in the hospital. Abby asks Mike if they will ever go back to the pizzeria, and he replies that he doesn't know what will happen in the future. Ultimately, it is revealed that William comes back to life due to the curse of the costume.